Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Civil War Monitors Behind the Lines. I'm your host, David Thompson. Today, it's my privilege to be joined by Cate Wyatt, who is the founder and president of the Journey Through the Hallowed Ground partnership. So, Cate, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
If you don't mind, if you could just perhaps start us off by telling us a little bit about what the Journey Through Hallowed Ground partnership is really all about.
Well, thanks. The Journey Through Hologram Partnership is a 501c3 nonprofit that we created to raise awareness of the history and heritage from Gettysburg in the north, sweeping all the way down to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello in the south. It's a swath of land that's about 180 miles long and varies to be, on average, about 75 miles wide, encompassing parts of Pennsylvania, Maryland, Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, and then 10 counties in Virginia.
Now, you are the founder of this organization. What inspired you originally, 8 years ago, I think, to start this organization, start this partnership?
Well, 8 years ago, 2005, this same swath of land was known only as the fastest growing region in the country, year in and year out. Now, I'm not against growth, but let's take a hard look at what this land holds. I mean, we're talking about 400 years of American history. We have 9 presidential homes, the founding fathers, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, who lived here, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, who received their sustenance from this region to create this country. And what I found in the research is that every generation who lived in this swath of land since have followed their lead to do the right thing, to create and to sustain this nation. So as you look at this land, what we have is the largest concentration of American history, the sites and the places, the people and their stories, which were being lost. It was being erased unmindfully. And that includes 47 national historic districts, 16 national landmarks. Now, that's the highest designation given by the Secretary of Interior to say these places are important to our American story. And of course, it includes the largest concentration of Civil War battlefields in the entire country. So it just seemed wrong. And I wasn't alone saying, let's take a step back. Let's really look at what this land is. Let's take another look at that farm and realize that it's not ipso facto that it will be slated for development. But let's really understand that that farm was a site of the largest cavalry battle in the history of North America, for example, at Brandy Station. So nicely, as I said, I wasn't alone in recognizing that something had to be done. In fact, there were hundreds and hundreds of individual nonprofits being led by thousands of people who were working every day to try to sustain their pocket in their community of their heritage. So it made sense simply to create an entity to knit together all of these good works and in the process bring not just to regional and national but international recognition the incredible wealth of heritage in this swath of land.
Now, as part of the Journey Through Hallowed Ground partnership, what types of activities or events are you responsible for, contributing to, in partnership with other organizations, doing actively year in, year out?
Well, there are a number. We have very ambitious business plans year in and year out. And one of the things that we've done is create the collaboration amongst every single town and elected body within this 4-state region to work collaboratively and to seek the designation as a National Historic Landmark, which we secured back in 2008 as an act of Congress and signed into law by then President Bush. Now, in addition to that, we actively sought to have the one road that ties all this history together, generally following the Old Carolina Road, designated as a National Scenic Byway. And again, it's a highly competitive process, but we figured if any road in the country deserved to be called a National Scenic Byway, it was that road. And we were very pleased that we received the designation in 2009 as the 99th road in the country to be designated. Now, neither of those come with regulatory authority, nor do we seek it. But it does help market this region. It helps us raise additional funding to bring programs like our educational programs to fruition. And if you'd like, I can expand on the educational program.
Absolutely.
Okay, these are fun. Because let's be clear, if we alone care about these places and don't generate immense interest in the coming generations, then we literally lose the battle. So we created, first and foremost, a summer camp for rising 6th through 8th graders. Now, it's called the Extreme Journey. And what happens is, in fact, I just came back from visiting our campers, and that's why I was a tad late. My apologies. But you'll understand why. I had to tear myself away. The students, boys and girls, arrive. Now, these are 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And they received a sealed envelope stamped confidential with a code on it that they have to decipher. And once they do, they rip it open, and it's a top-secret briefing binder that reads, "You are now an agent in the Journey Through Hallowed Ground Intelligence Agency. And your mission over the coming 2 weeks is to uncover the mysteries of history through espionage. You'll be assuming the identities of people who actually lived within the Journey Through Hallowed Ground, face the same facts, and then you have to decide, what would you do if you were them?" Within an hour, we have them canoeing 10 miles down the Potomac River as one of the Union troops at the Battle of Ball's Bluff. Now, mind you, many have never canoed, so they're going in circles. And I'm screaming out, "Come on, soldiers, straight and steady." And we get to the bluff, and they're told to charge straight on up. And I don't know if you've ever seen Ball's Bluff, but it is a bluff. And those Union boys came in there and were told to charge up. Now, nobody in their right mind would do that. And those kids quickly understand, why would anyone do this? Why would Edmund Baker, who was a senator, do this? And we've got them. And in short order, they are understanding they've got choices they have to make. Should they go sideways? Should they try to flee? Should they go charging straight up? And how much do these cannonballs weigh anyways? We'll be at the Gilmore cabin, a freed African American, and they have to decide how will they feed their family. They have to make the meal straight out of the garden. Through the course of all of this, they're at Antietam tomorrow, learning about signaling and Clara Barton and medicine. And in this, they realized that people just like you and I, throughout the course of our American history, had to make difficult decisions, and time and again, they made decisions that were for the greater good. And therefore, these students themselves, these campers, understand it's incumbent upon them just civically to become engaged and to do the right thing. So it's a wonderful camp, the last day of which we have the world premiere of their videos, and invite their teachers and their principals, their parents. We have folks from the Park Service come, and it's just a delightful and in fact, a transformational experience for these campers. So we do this in collaboration with the public school system. We have 3 to 4 sessions each summer that are each 2 weeks long. And now we're looking at doing a session that allows for overnight campers. But, it's interesting, David, because of that experience, we were asked by the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation to bring this same sort of learning into the classroom. So we created a program called Of the Student, By the Student, For the Student. And it is, again, targeted to middle school students. And it is all-inclusive. In other words, we work with an entire 7th grade class or an entire 6th grade class. And we ask them to tell us what they find most interesting about the history found in their own backyard. We have done this in partnership with our national parks that are Civil War related. And there are 13 national parks within the Journey Through Hallowed Ground partnership. And so rolling up to the sesquicentennial, we have thankfully been able to raise the money to bring this program to Harper's Ferry, to Manassas, to Gettysburg, to Antietam, to Williamsport, Wilderness. And it's a program where we bring the students into the park and set up through 6 different stations. And they have to ask the questions that are interesting to them. They then go back to the school, and their assignment is to write a pitch. As if you're making a movie, you have to pitch a movie. Write up and give us your pitch on why you think what you think is interesting would be interesting to other students. And we do this with a big General Assembly. Everybody votes, and the 6 most compelling ideas are then put into production teams. And all the students then reorganize themselves to work on one aspect of taking that idea, writing the script, blocking the shots, using only primary source documents, verify all of their information, and then we bring them back to the battlefield or to a historic home, and they film it, they edit it, they make all the props, they make all the music. And their final 6 mini-movies are then official National Park Service interpretive materials, shown in the visitor centers, shown on YouTube, on Facebook. Comcast has now put them on demand, which is a wonderful thing. And these students in the process end up owning that park and understanding history as they never had or could have before.
What sounds like quite an educational program.
It's wonderful. And I encourage everybody to go on our website, hallowedground.org, and under the education tab on the top, click on it, and you'll see where you can watch these videos. And again, the program is called Of the Student, By the Student, For the Student. And one of the very nice parts about this is that these students are teaching all of us, because what they think is interesting is often not before interpreted. For example, in Harper's Ferry, the first year, the kids were asking, well, what was John Brown like as a kid that made him do this? Or what did John Brown's kids think of the raid? And as you know, he had nearly 24 of them. And an important part of this entire curriculum is that it's not enough for the students to retell a story. They have to tell us why it's relevant today. So the students in Gettysburg this year did beautiful work. And in one of the stories, the students took a hard look at the Sherfy family, who lived in Harper's Ferry, whose father went off to war, giving up his dream to build a little family company, was terribly emotionally racked by the war, came home for a few days and left again, never to return, having been captured, and he died at Andersonville. And what the impact of that was on the daughters and the wife. And they tied that back into the impact of all servicemen and women today, and how that affects their peers today who have parents who serve. So it's I get chill bumps. These young people are extremely smart and insightful, and in the process of creating these podcasts, as I mentioned, have been able to teach all of us a different way of seeing our history and how it's relevant today.
So you're dealing with education, you're dealing with preservation, you're casting a very wide net, but what to you really sets the Journey Through Hallowed Ground apart, perhaps, from other like-minded groups and organizations that might be out there?
You know, clearly there were an awful lot of folks, early days, who didn't think that this would be possible, bringing together so many diverse interests from a very large geographic area, bringing together so many competing interests in some sort of general way of interpreting it. But in fact, when people understand that we each can make a difference, that we each can help create a national treasure, my experience has been that it has been enormously empowering as well as very enriching for everybody who has participated, every organization that has participated. It's a model that works. And we actually offer a lot of time to other regions throughout the country that are looking to build a cohesive, collaborative partnership to move forward on what they'd like to be in the future, if you will. But I could tell you what, it has been a blessing and an honor to work with so many of our partners. I mean, from the Civil War Trust with the great leadership of Jim Lighthizer, Jim Campy, both of whom serve on our national board and our board of trustees, respectively, to be able to work with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and again with representative governance from Stephanie Meeks, who's a president on our national board, as well as Betsy Merritt, who serves on our board of trustees, to be able to have around one table in our governance developers, preservationists, teachers, landowners, farmers, all working together to ensure that we do not, unintentionally or without every effort, otherwise realize that this land must and has to be preserved and conserved, and because the stories they tell is really the cultural fabric of what it is to be America. And among those programs that we've been able to do, if I can elaborate on one tied specifically to the Civil War.
Absolutely.
And this actually speaks to part of what you were asking. By everybody working together and collaborating, we have been able to get an awful lot done in 8 very short years. And at one point, a couple of years ago, the governor of Virginia sent a memo to all the mayors asking that they work diligently to create a legacy project to commemorate the sesquicentennial of the Civil War in their community. Now, I know they got a memo because within moments I got calls from almost every single one of them saying, Kate, really, we don't want another monument and we don't need another flagpole. And since we've all been working together to create something bigger than any of us, isn't there a project that we can do that will be a substantial and significant commemorative legacy for the Civil War? The answer was a very simple yes. I mean, if you think about it, the Civil War was largely fought over the words Mr. Jefferson wrote. And as you turn out of his driveway, you turn onto the Journey Through Hologram National Scenic Byway, and you travel that 180 miles north, passing the largest concentration of Civil War battlefields in the country, ending at Gettysburg. And when you think about it, most of those 620,000 or now 740,000 young men who died fought on those battlefields. So what we decided is that we will plant one tree for each of those young boys and plant them from Thomas Jefferson's Monticello straight up the Journey Through Hologram National Scenic Byway, culminating at Gettysburg, as a living memorial for their sacrifice and as an appropriate legacy project to commemorate the 150th.
I think it's really a tremendous project, a tremendous undertaking, very ambitious, but certainly one that, as you said, creates a living legacy for those who gave their ultimate sacrifice during the war itself. So, Kate, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Again, the website's hollowedground.org, everyone. I suggest you go there. It is a very true partnership. When you go and you look at the list of organizations that Kate and the Journey Through Hologram Partnership work with, it's simply mind-blowing, frankly. But it's a testament to how important this is in a very special region of the country, and one that hopefully can be preserved and for students to learn from for years and decades to come. So again, Kate, thanks so much for coming on, and perhaps we can have you back on again to talk about some of the continued projects for the Journey Through Hologram Partnership.
I'd love to. Thanks so much for your time.